It's so good to have you with us today. My name is Ember Kelly. I'm the Director of Religious Education at the Fourth Universalist Society in the city of New York. This spring, we are hosting an internal Parents and Caregivers as Sexuality Educators group. This is a curriculum that was put together by the Unitarian Universalist Association to kind of explore the role that parents have in sexuality education. As we prepared to offer this small group, we thought that it would be really great to offer an external facing ability to discuss some of these issues as well. A little bit of a prompt for some ideas to consider for parents, as well as just kind of discuss some of the things that we're coming across in leading this group. And I am so excited to be joined by my co-teacher, my co-lead, and former RE assistant, Teacher Deb. Teacher Deb, great to have you.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
To get us started, I probably should mention I use she and her pronouns because an issue that might come up in sexuality education is considering identity. So it's important that we be transparent and share about our identities and our pronouns to make spaces feel comfortable, including spaces with our kids. Teacher Deb, would you like to share your pronouns?
Yes, I use she and they. Thank you for asking.
So we acknowledge this is a hard topic. There's part of me that even as we record this, I'm like, wow, we're really talking about sex on a church video. Um, so we understand this is a hard topic, and it can feel challenging to approach. It can feel overwhelming to approach, I think would even be a term that I would use. But it's okay to feel that way. Our culture has, both empowered, you know, sexuality as something that it can sell, but still kind of kept it to be something that we don't want to engage with talking about as a society, especially with our young people. It feels like an awkward thing and a difficult thing to face. Um, so, Teacher Deb, we've got a few different topics that we want to talk about in this video today. Would you like to talk about our first one?
Yes, we could begin with talking about the importance of modeling and living consent culture in our whole lives, respecting our kids' autonomy and their existence as wholly separate human beings. Um, This is new for a lot of people, very new, and it is greatly appreciated. I appreciate this being a part of our discussion because I care a lot about protecting kids from harm. In my former roles as operations leaders at schools, it was a big topic, and so I know a lot of parents are concerned about that, and me myself as a parent, I am concerned about that. So this can be as simple as like asking if it's okay to give a hug or if they want to engage in a hug or um, not forcing kids to say hello to people that they don't know or that they actually don't want to interact with right now. Are there ways you see this in your life, Ember?
Right. No, when you're saying the forcing thing, I think so often um, that we, especially as kids, and I see it playing out in adults. I see it playing out in my own life as I unpack things in my own healing journeys. The way that we as young people are forced to just like, oh, that makes me uncomfortable with you, it shouldn't, just get over that. And we learn to not trust our bodies. So like there's an aspect of it that in modeling consent culture at a young age, this ability to see our ability to make decisions about our body, our ability to understand our own body, to speak for our own body. If we can learn that at a young age, it's going to have just powerful implications for like the rest of your life. Because if that is not, um, if you end up this distrust of yourself as you get older,
Yeah.
and so I think that's really important, and I think that it comes through in little ways too. Like I think about my oldest. Um, he asks that if I'm hanging up laundry to dry and I'm hanging it on their bunk bed, that I ask for permission first. So I do.
Mhm.
And we've had a couple conversations about just the importance of like yes, we're going to give you lots of food, and yes, we'd like you to try new things, but also like trust your body. Like
Mhm.
if your body says eat, if your body says don't eat, okay. And if your body says it's time to wake up, if it says it's time to go to sleep, like trust your body, trust what it's saying to you. So I think
Absolutely.
that modeling consent culture builds a trust in yourself at a young
Mhm.
age if we really are modeling that for our kids.
Right. I think another piece of this is if we are prioritizing the consent culture, then we are also getting better at dealing with no or like rejection and like, okay, that person doesn't want to engage right now. That's okay. I feel like we will be better at as a society with
Right.
no and yeah.
Right. No, because our society, sees kids as parents' property. Like that's what it's been for a long time in Western society. And I mean, in a lot of human societies. But how could that change if we see kids as human beings that are fully capable of sharing what they think, and that we should actually take their thoughts into consideration
Mhm.
um, when we are doing that. I'm sure that's a little bit harder when we're parents of teenagers, and there's a little bit more no going on. Um, but
Absolutely.
I think, yeah, it's so counter cultural. And I was actually reading a New Yorker article that was talking about gaslighting. um,
Mm,
and it said that one of the biggest gaslighting times in any day is uh, right before school is starting at any family's house, because their parents gaslighting their kids into like, I need you to get this. I need you have 1 second. Um, yeah, this pressure that gets
mhm,
so as you're saying, like that we get comfortable with the no. If we learn to trust our kids and listen to our kids, then we start to change our routines, and
mhm.
start to build our routines around what's comfortable for them as much as we build our routines around what's comfortable for us, because we do that as adults.
Right.
So we should do
Absolutely.
that for our kids too. And then that models. So like the thing is, this is a sexuality, so I don't want to totally leave that behind. This models how to make decisions about your body. This models how to speak up for yourself, and it models how to listen to others too, so that if they are engaging in a relationship as they get older, that they can share what they're thinking, they can listen to what their partner is saying, and that they can express what their body is interested in.
Mm.
Like that, these are important things to build. um,
Yes.
that being said, one of the things that we've talked about is that there really is an importance to holding space for like the different experiences that might happen across uh, assigned gender at birth, gender expressions, across sexuality, across race, across even just attraction.
Mhm,
Asexuality is something that people are talking about even nowadays, and that some kids are sharing as part of their identity. The thing is that at a young age, kids are working on figuring themselves out, and that's good. Like we want to both hold that space, but then also we need to also hold space that we might need to do a little bit of learning, but
mhm,
also that we might need to tailor and research and understand things that we might not have known,
mhm,
so that we
mhm.
can kind of better reach for the particular space that they're coming from when we're talking to them.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I totally agree. And I think some of the parts of this that is a little bit scary is because of the unknown or like this wasn't modeled for many people in their growing up years. And so it is a new territory and there is some learning to be done. You actually have to commit to like expressing across, like you say, these different experiences. And even if your child isn't like what if they're cis or like they're just heteronormative, but being able to provide other examples of expression also make normalizes and
Right.
um, encourages just this thoughtfulness and listening.
Right. Yeah, I know in justice circles, we kind of say that reputation isn't everything, or not reputation, representation. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, my inner Swifty slipping out there. But um, no, the representation isn't, the be all end all of true justice, but it really, especially for kids, it is
Hmm.
important, I think about that in being a trans woman doing ministry, that I want to have that message out there for young people that, like, it is okay to, like, explore being themselves and explore their gender identity, and that being LGBTQIA plus, that, that doesn't necessarily mean that your life is gonna be some horrible thing, like, that there is so much
Right.
beauty that could be, held there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, and I think that we, need to just be aware, like you were talking about safety. So, like, we do need to have those conversations about, safe sex, about how to,
Hmm.
like, be safe in the world around us. Like, those are also important conversations to have that also interact with gender and race and all of that as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it may seem like a lot, but we have talked in the past, you and I, about this is an ongoing conversation. And like you're ever just holding the space so that your child feels comfortable coming to you and knowing that they can ask the things that they're wondering and um, they'll learn and that you can engage with each other and learn together and take this journey together. But this isn't like a one-time thing and it's over or a two time like two or three times possibly.
Right. Well, I think that kind of relates back to what we are saying with, like, the consent culture, because if we're modeling that we're a good person to talk to in other conversations and other things about their life, if we're listening to their stories about what's going on in their day at school, and then we don't just write it off as like, oh, grade school drama, high school drama, but that we listen and we understand what they're going through for these other things. If it's, a 7 and 9-year-old obsessed with Minecraft, as I have adapted to in my own life, that I've learned a lot about Minecraft, and that I, hold the space to listen about those things, so that I am modeling that later in life, that they know that I'm a person that they can talk to about things. That I think that just like consent culture, it's the little things that we can model, that we are, um, a safe space for them to come talk to.
Absolutely.
So that when it comes time for an awkward conversation,
Mhm.
that it's like, "Hey, mom, like, I know this is some I know we talk about things, so can we talk
Yes.
about this?"
Right, you have some skin in the game where you've put some time in
Right,
together so you know you can maneuver it
right,
and it's gonna be okay on the other side, even if
right.
it's awkward or hard.
I think about, my I grew up evangelical, but I did have a little bit of, like, a sex talk with my mom when I was growing up. And that happened because I knew that she was, like, the person I went and talked to about things, like, when I had questions. I was like, "Hey, I know that this is a thing, so, like, what exactly is it?" Um,
Right.
so I think, yeah, the kids are looking for people that they know are holding space for them to talk to them in the first place.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, I think, part of the reason we're making this is both to just, like, normalize that these are things, that people struggle with, and part of the reason that we're having the small group is so that we're kind of holding the space for the parents to journey together.
Mhm.
Um, and it's important, I think, to feel supported in this work, whether that's through programs like the one that we're offering internally at Fourth U right now, or if that's having friends and other parents that that you kind of trust as someone to, like, bounce ideas off of and consider things with. Like, I know you and we text about things and talk about
Absolutely.
life. It's important to have those people in your life that you can feel supported with in conversations like this, don't you think?
I totally agree. And I agree, like, it's lovely to be able to text and talk about this. And my wife and I have talked about, like, just growing our skills together and engaging with our kids. But I think it'll be also amazing to connect with a few other families we know and just ask, like, what are you all planning? How are you approaching this? And maybe as a collective, we can continue to support each other and share resources and laugh about some of the awkward things we experience or
Right.
yeah, the
Right.
community help.
Yeah, well,
Mhm,
especially the community, I think about as a parent of a neurodiverse child, like
mhm,
that I, hope that I can kind of maybe learn what other strategies people are using around, how to approach these topics, in a neurodiverse friendly way. Um,
absolutely.
so that can kind of enable us to also, that having that community around us can help us better hold the space for, like, those things that we might not know about. Maybe
Right.
they'll know something that you don't. Maybe
Ab-
you got a polyamorous family in your community, or a you might even have a straight family in your friend group.
Definitely, definitely. But yes,
You
the representation and
cisgendered people might even be there too. Um,
yes, but yeah.
ah, it's important to have those people that you can connect with.
Yeah. And as we say, like it will probably be awkward. There are different points of that may be awkward, and that's okay. It also might be awkward to just start a conversation with one of your close friends and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about these discussions with my child. What have you done?" And that's okay though, also.
Right? If we're thinking of our kids as, whole human beings with their own thought processes and just like you wouldn't necessarily walk up to a friend and just be like, "So, today I'd like to talk to you about how sex works." Like,
Right.
not good conversation 101.
Right.
There might be ways that you can make it a little bit less awkward, that you can, build up to it. You can have it, you know, that's the beauty and why we hope in the future to launch something like an OWL program so that it's something that the kids are engaging with in a healthy, safe environment as well. So that then the conversations happen because that is also happening.
Mhm.
But yeah, it is going to be awkward. It is going to be weird. And things, um, I think that it's, also understandable that we might get triggered, as you were saying that it
Yeah.
might be stuff that because we didn't have any modeling of this for a lot of us, because there wasn't any standard really. Um, and so we might get triggered by it, but it also might just bring up fears and worries that we didn't realize, you know,
Mhm. Mhm.
um, if um, uh, as as a, trans woman with a conservative, extended family, there's, part of me that if either of my kids came out of trans, like, that I would love to support them, but that part of me would be like, "I'm so worried about, like, is my conservative family thinking I'm brainwashing them?" Like, so you
Absolutely.
never
Yeah.
know what triggers and what worries might come up, and, like, it's okay. Like, I
Mhm.
think it's just important as you're holding a space for the kids, that you hold the space for yourself, um,
Absolutely.
to take it slow, not avoid it, like, don't use it as an excuse to avoid it, but to take it slow and to, like, figure out a way that works for you and works for your relationship with your kid.
Absolutely. And even if you fumble or something and you're like later on, like, oh, I probably should have done it this other way, like just giving yourself some grace and continuing to move forward because if you have built this trusting relationship and your young person sees you as a trustworthy adult, the conversation will continue and it's okay. You'll keep moving forward.
Right, yeah, no, I think it's so important to do that modeling and being that trustworthy person because I think, our kids are looking at how we react to these conversations too, and they're looking at, um, how we relate to gender, how we relate to sexuality, like with it being something that is in movies and music and in the culture around us, how are we reacting? Are we reacting out of shame? Are we reacting out of
Mhm.
um, you know, over exuberance, there's lots of different ways that could go.
Right.
Or are we modeling like a healthy, are we modeling what healthy relationships look like? Are we modeling what a healthy relationship to sexuality looks like? Are we
Mhm.
modeling being okay with understanding and exploring ourselves? Because then those things, when our kids see us doing that, they'll then be able to take that and internalize that towards A, trusting you, but then B, seeing those things modeled for themselves. It'll be something that they can feel like they can practice as they engage these tough questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like I think you really got to think through, how your actions will be perceived and received by the kids. Like, the way that you approach this conversation, if it's like, if the kids can tell that you think that this is going to be the worst thing ever, that you like the worst conversation that you ever like, then it's gonna be, bad. But
Mhm.
like I think about my own journey and sharing about my gender confirmation surgery. Part of the reason I share publicly about it is because for both kids and adults, I want to model that it's not something that we have to be like afraid of and not something
Right.
that like we should be ashamed to talk about.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
because both adults and kids, they're watching and perceiving how, so if I act out of shame about it, then they're gonna be like, "Oh, well, this must be like a really shameful thing."
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I think that our actions in so many ways are being perceived, received, internalized, then externalized by the kids. And, I think that especially plays out as they get into relationships when they get older. They're
Mhm.
they're watching our relationship patterns.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're seeing like how you talk to your partner, how you engage around conflict, how do you set boundaries, how do you speak up for yourself. It's almost like a little camera, and they're seeing all the model and they're internalizing it. This interdependence is very it just permeates all aspects of it, and so
Right. Yeah, it's important for us um, to consider that the interdependent web, as we use say. Um, but yeah, that our own approaches will play out in their approaches. So we need to like analyze and heal to some level, or I think our own approaches sometimes in our own relationships with ourselves, with our bodies, with
right.
sexuality, so that then makes it easier for these conversations to happen and for the kids to see healthy examples because I think that's ultimately going to help shape things too, is if we can be healthy examples for our kids.
I totally agree. Totally.
Do you have any closing thoughts you might like to add?
Well, I'm glad that like we're actually thinking about this kind of these topics and being intentional and naming the things that may be hard and the things we're looking forward to or the ways we would like to shift what we experienced. And so I also hope that as I take this journey with my children and other youth, that I listen to them and like what they actually wonder about and what they need or what they're interested in, along with writing some of my own internal things and addressing and growing with. Yeah. Yeah. How about you?
I think I love that, the beauty of listening to our kids for identifying what they need and where they're at. But yeah, I think it's good that we're um, having grown up in that evangelical culture where the only conversation about sex was that you're going to hell. Um,
If you
that
haven't yet.
or think about it or even like remotely consider it. Um, That, I'm glad that just, through the act of having this small group, through the act of making this video, that we're just doing just a little bit to kind of counteract um, that culture that tells us that it's something that we should fear. And I hope that this can be a positive step for people's journeys in both their conversations with their kids, but also um, their conversations with themselves. So.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
Teacher Deb, thanks so much for joining today.
Thanks so much for having me. Thank you.
And for our listeners, both those that were in our small group, but those who have come about this video later, we hope that this gave some thoughtful reflections and some considerations for you as you engage in whatever journey you might have in conversing about sexuality with your kid or a child that you care for in your life. So, thank you so much for tuning in.